So let's see in this particular video session quantified statements pertaining to more than one variable. So that is, you know the concept of quantified statements, and you also have learnt about using one variable in a particular quantified statement. I have given video presentations pertaining to the same. So let's discuss here the concept of more than one variable when we look into the quantified statement. So the open statements that contain two variables, let's say x and y, they are denoted by p of x comma y. And you also know that if we take three variables, let's say x, y and z, we can have an associated open statement which can be written as either p of x comma y comma z, or it can be written as q of x comma y comma z. That is in terms of three variables. So for the statement, if the statement consists of more than one variable, the universe can be same for all the variables, or it may be different. True? Then, for example, let's take an example. Let's take a question over here. So let x and y denote these open sentences. So which are I've got an open sentence here. Okay, an open sentence here. So that is p of x comma y is x plus y is even. And the x and y variables are integers. Okay, x and y variables are integers. And we have an open statement p of x comma y which denotes x plus y is even. So we are supposed to write these in words. Okay. So if we can say something more about this, that is, if we have a quantified statement with more than one variable, and if p of x comma y is an open statement which contains variables like x and y, so we can have these many quantified statements, that is, for all x, for all y, p of x comma y, or we can also have for all x, there exists y, p of x comma y, or there exists x, there exists y, p of x comma y. Next, I can also have there exists x for all y, p of x comma y. So these are the possible combinations of quantified statements when we consider two variables. So respectively, we can see the same thing when we take three variables. So if I have got, let's take an example. I have taken my open statement p of x comma y as x plus y equals 1. Okay, let's assume, just for a demonstration, we take this particular open statement p of x comma y is x plus y equals 1. And the universe is nothing but the set of integers. Okay, it's a set of integers. And let's suppose we want to demonstrate about for all x, there exists y, p of x comma y. How could this be read? Okay, this represents for all, okay, for every integer x, there exists y, such that, what does this denote? This denotes the open statement x plus y equals 1. So let me write this. So if I have got this kind of quantified statement, this could be read as, for every x, or for every integer x, there exists an integer y such that x plus y equals 1. So this is how I can say something about the quantified statement. So let's move back to our example quickly. So this is our question. So let x and y denote integers, and we have got the open statement p of x comma y is x plus y is even. We are supposed to write this in words. So how do we write this particular quantified statement in words? So let's see this. So as such, you must know what universal quantifier tells us, what existential quantifier tells us. Okay, then it's easier for us to represent in terms of words. So let's solve this. So this particular question can be represented in terms of words as with every integer x, or I can write for every integer x, there exists an integer y such that, so now you need to express what this particular open statement means. So this means that x plus y is even. I think this is clear. So let's see the next example. So we have to, our task is here to write it in symbolic terms or symbolic form. So how do we express this in symbolic form using quantifiers? So the statement is given, every real number has an additive inverse. So you must know what is an additive inverse, and from the second question you must know what is a multiplicative identity. Okay. So here we'll see the next problem, that is we have been given additive inverse and multiplicative identity. So first of all, we should know what each of the terms tell us. Like for example, additive inverse. So additive inverse has a property, if you take a number, let's say a added with some particular term gives us back 0. So this term should be the negative number or the inverse or the opposite of a. So if we take the number as a, the opposite of a is minus a, so that we get 0. So this is nothing but the additive inverse. So if we define what an additive inverse is, it is a number, let's say a, such that when added to it yields 0. Okay. So next, if I take an example, that is here I have written 5, if your number is taken as 5 minus 5 gives 0. Okay, this is additive inverse. So next, following multiplicative identity. So this number when multiplied with some term gives you back the same term or gives you back 1. Okay, so that is nothing but the multiplicative identity. So how could we express the question? So every real number has an additive inverse. So let's take any real number, let's say x. Okay, so every real number, we write it by this method, for all x, every real number. So there will be some y, so that means there exists y, such that the additive inverse property is served. So what is the additive inverse? We can write it in this manner, right? X plus y equals y plus x gives you back 0. So this is the additive inverse property. So next, coming to the next question. So the set of real numbers has a multiplicative identity. So first of all, we know what is a multiplicative identity. So the set of real numbers, that means it is not for all numbers but for the set of real numbers. So if you take some numbers, okay, if you take some numbers from the set of real numbers, let's say there exists x, okay, you are taking some real number, we are representing it by x. So for that real number there exists, okay, so we are taking the set of real numbers, that is for some real numbers. Whatever real number we take, everything has got another variable such that multiplicative identity property is solved. So you can write it in this manner. How we can write it? We can write it in this way. There exists x for all y. That means for every real number we have got a multiplicative identity. Whatever real number we take, it has got a multiplicative identity such that this is the multiplicative identity property, x into y. Okay, x will be the variable that is taken, and y is nothing but the multiplicative identity. Okay, so for example, I have given here a into 1 by a gives you 1, or 5 into 1 by 5 gives you 1. Okay, so we can have this property xy equal to yx equal to y, or it is equal to 1. We can take it anyway. Okay, coming to the next problem. So in the next problem, what we have is, we have to determine the truth value of the following quantified statements. So let's see the first problem. There exists x, there exists y, xy equal to 1. Okay, xy equal to 1. So how do we find out the truth value of this one? So here we are going to take a particular value of x, and for that value of x we are checking whether we get y, so that xy is 1. So now if we take x value as 1, okay, if we take value as 1, so can we get such a value of y such that the final result is 1? Yes, we can take y as 1, right, for the given value f of x. So therefore we can have the truth value as true. That means for some value of x we can get y such that xy is 1. Therefore we can conclude this has got truth value as true. So coming to the next problem, that is, for all x there exists y, xy is 1. So we should check for all the values of x, and for that value of x do we have any y such that xy is 1. So I can take x value as 1 also, or I can take x value as 2 also. If I take x value as 2, okay, 2 into what gives you 1? 2 into 1 by 2 only. But we are not, y should not be, apart from the universe. What is the universe? Only set of integers. It is not fractions or not real numbers. So we cannot have any value of y for the x taken to be 2, so that xy equal to 1. So instead of proving for everything, for all x, we can check for some clue wherein for that value of x do we get the value of y such that this is true. We find that this is not true if we are checking for all the cases. So one example is if x is 2. We cannot get the value of y so that xy is 1. Okay. So next, if we solve this equation, try to solve this equation. Students, it's left to you. This is a part for the assignment. So you try to solve this equation, and then for that value of x, do we get the value of y, and that y does it belong to set of non-zero integers? So basically, if we talk about non-zero integers, so these are integers which are positive whole numbers and negative whole numbers, but they do not include 0. So you must check whether the x belongs to set of non-zero integers. That is, it should not include 0. It can include positive as well as negative. Okay. So for that value of x, do we get the value of y such that this equation holds, is what you have to find out. So if we get the values x and y, then we justify that the truth value is true. So next we'll see this question. So we have to find the negation of the following. So given this question, for all x there exists y, p of x comma y and q of x comma y implies r of x comma y. We have to find out the negation. So basically you should know how to negate a quantified state. So whenever we negate a quantified statement, the universal quantifier becomes existential quantifier, and this kind of open statement will be turned into negation. So now we have to find out the negation of this whole term. So how do we write this? So we can write negation of the whole term. So I'll be writing for all x there exists y, p of x comma y, okay, p of x comma y and q of x comma y implies r of x comma y. This is what I will be writing. So I have to find out the negation of this whole term. So when we find out the negation of this whole term, this will be this will be logically equivalent to there exists x, comma, for all y, negation of this whole term. Implies r of x, comma, y. So this will be the negation. So yet we can simplify this as, we know this is in the form of p implies q form. So negation of p implies q will be p and negation q. So we are going to simplify this in that manner. There exists x for all y. What do we get? P of x comma y and q of x comma y, and it is p and negation q, right? Negation of p implies q will be p and negation q. So we are writing p as it is. Okay, we are writing p as it is, p and negation q. So instead of q you have got negation r of x comma y. This is how you simplify the term. So we'll see the next problem. Prove that the argument, okay, prove that the argument is valid. We need to check whether the argument is valid, that is by considering any rules or laws. And here a and b are given to be some members of the universe. These are members of the universe. So here is the first premise, this is the second premise, and here we have got the conclusion. So we need to check whether these premises meet the conclusion. So first of all, let's write this in terms of conjunction. So we can write this as for all x, for all y, p of x comma y implies q of x comma y, conjunction negation q of a comma b. So how we can write this term? As you know, any universal quantifiers. So like this, for all x, for all y. So it applies to every value of x, every value of y. So but we cannot take every value of x and every value of y to check this. So what we do is, we take a particular component, let's say a and b, okay, and we check for this particular premise. So this will be p of a comma b implies q of a comma b. Okay, conjunction negation of q of a comma b. So I am writing here logically implies. It's based on the rule of universal. It is based on the rule of universal specification. So if I know this is true for all the components in the universe, and if a and b are some component in the universe, so we can say that p of a comma b is true. P of a comma b implies q of a comma b is true. That's why based on the rule of universal specification, this is justified. So we write it in this manner. And negation of q of a comma b. This is I will write the entire term. Next, how can we simplify this? So as per the rule of inference, you have observed many rules of inference which are used to establish the validity of the argument. So this is the form of p implies q and negation q. So p implies q and negation q will be negation p. Okay, so this will be simplified into negation p. So this is like your p, this is like your q, and this is negation q. So as per the rule of modest tolerance, we know that p implies q and negation q logically implies negation p. So this is your rule of modest tolerance, and it matches this particular form. So it is negation of p of a comma b. This is as per rule of modest tolerance. So each of the rules carries marks, and it is better to write step by step. So I have explained step by step in a detailed manner how to solve the problem. So now we have arrived at this particular line. So how do we say something about this? So as we know, by rule of universal generalization, if we have some component to be true, okay, then we say that it is true for it is also true for some component. That is, we this can be similar to saying that if you take one particular term, okay, if you take one particular term, we can say this is not belonging to any rules of generalization or specification, but as per some component view, we can observe that here it is true for some component A and B. Therefore, we can say there exists x, there exists y, negation of P of x comma y. If we take the value of x and y, okay, if we take the value of x and y, since we have taken two components, it is true for those two components only. So we are saying it as there exists some component within the universe, and we are taking variables x and y respectively such that this holds. Okay, so therefore we can say the argument is valid.